YA nerds, my name is Kaye and I like to read a lot. And welcome to another week of Kaye Reads a Lot. Yay! Sorry I keep taking like weird intermittent breaks. Life is crazy. I now work 2 jobs instead of 3. Amazing! And it's just taking me like a really long time to read these days. I can't explain why. Also, yesterday I got my second COVID shot, so we're doing this. Anyway, today I wanted to talk to you all about Sorcery of Thorns. Ooh, look at that. It's by Margaret Rogerson. As you can see, I, of course, was taken away by the cover. Love this cover. Love the main character on the cover. And I also really liked in this book that the main character is a librarian, so I was kind of like, I have to read this. So Sorcery of Thorns, it's a fantasy book. It was published June 4th in 2019, and it's 453 pages. So it is pretty long. The thing I appreciate about Margaret Rogerson's books, I said this about her other book, whose name I cannot recall right now at this moment, but her other book, I appreciate that they are standalones. She's not making trilogies, she's not making duologies, she makes one book. And personally, as someone who reads a lot, sometimes it's nice to just have one book. I don't have to worry about reading 13 books to understand a series. Sometimes I don't have to worry about that awful trilogy slump, you know, when you get to the second book and it sucks, but the first book was great and you have to read the second book to get to the third book. So I appreciate this kind of thing right here. So yeah, let's talk about the book. So I read this book in October 2020, at the tail end of my reading slump last year during the panorama, as some people have been calling it, which I kind of like calling it that. The Panama, the Panic, the Pandora, the Panorama. And I do want to point out too that this actually won the Goodreads choice for YA fantasy in 2019, so that's kind of another reason why it was on my list. So in this book, we follow Elizabeth, who grew up in a library. And in this world, libraries are not what they are here. They're not community spaces. They're not places where you rent books. They are repositories for books that are magical. So it is part of Elizabeth's job to guard the public from the evil books that reside in her library. And for that, I think it's a really interesting concept. Also in her world, sorcerers exist. And I am a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, so in my head, I really like the way that they translated sorcerers into this book because it follows D&D a little bit. Actually kind of follows warlocks more. It doesn't matter. So in my head, I get warlocks and sorcerers mixed up for D&D, but that's just me. So Nathaniel is the sorcerer who shows up at the library to have a meeting with the head librarian, and he and Elizabeth meet. And it's not really a meet cute. I guess it could be, but from that moment forwards, Elizabeth's life keeps changing. At one point, the library that she resides in is attacked by I think it's like a class 9 book or something, some crazy scary book that transforms into a monster and pretty much destroys the library. And she's under suspicion for being the person who summoned this book because she's one of the only survivors, and she happens to like take the book down in a field X amount of miles away from the library. So it's very interesting. She and Nathaniel get thrust together to try to solve, you know, what's going on with these books, what's going on with the libraries, why some of the libraries are being like attacked in this systemic way. And it just turns into this really interesting book. That's another thing I kind of appreciate about Margaret Rogerson. She does have really interesting ideas, and she just takes some existing ideas and expand on them, like the fish out of water kind of thing that we get with Elizabeth. So yeah, that's pretty much the plot. I'm sorry, kind of meandered that. I got distracted. There are cats trying to break into my room. But yeah, so that's it for the plot. Let's talk about the tropes. So the tropes. Again, this is a list of tropes that I came up with on my own, but also with the help of some librarians, as well as the internet, as well as fan fiction, as well as friends. Hi, Tessa. And this is an ever-changing list. I think there's like 45 right now, but we could wind up at 50 by the end of the year. Who knows? I'm constantly thinking of new tropes that apply to YA fic. And as always, I don't consider tropes to be a negative thing. I think having tropes applied to your book helps you figure out what kind of books you like to read. So for instance, I think I give this example every time. I really like enemies to lovers. I think it's a fun trope. And I'm not talking about like the villain is irredeemable and the hero falls in love with them anyway. No, I'm talking about, hey, I went to high school with that guy and I hate him and now I love him. Or, oh, that girl was really mean to my cousin once and I hate her and now I love her. Or even, oh, that person is a rival from my basketball team and I hate that person and now I love them. Stuff like that I think is really fun. And when you label a book with that trope, chances are I'm going to read it. So that's kind of where the trope idea came from with this channel and why I keep repeating them. So anyway, the tropes for Sorcery of Thorns are beauty blind. Elizabeth is gorgeous and she has no idea. This is a common trope, actually, that, like, you know, when you have a female protagonist, she's gorgeous and doesn't realize it. And it can be a negative trope, but I think it kind of makes Elizabeth more endearing in this regard. We also have broken family units. Both Elizabeth and Nathaniel are orphans for various reasons. It is very sad. We also have the Chosen One. It's a little bit of a spoiler. So I can't tell you who the Chosen One is, but you find out towards the end who they really are. It's pretty great. Enemies to lovers. I know I just said I love this trope, but now it's here in this book. So Elizabeth is afraid of sorcerers. She's been told her whole life that they're evil because they make pacts with demons to get their magical powers. And in her mind, that is a terrible, awful thing. And obviously, whoever wants to make a pact with a demon is a bad person, right? No. So the two of them kind of fall for each other, even though they don't like each other. And I love that. We also have found family. Again, Elizabeth and Nathaniel are both orphans, and so when they find each other, they kind of find a family in each other for that very reason, as well as with the demon who's with Nathaniel, Elias. And I think the three of them together as a family makes for like a really like heartwarming sentiment, I guess. We also have Mr. Tall, Dark, and Perfect. Nathaniel is perfect in every way up until you find out his flaws. And I always like the way that authors kind of go about this trope. You know, you have the perfect man for you, but he's got like some dark secrets and you have to like kind of get past that in order to fall in love with him. We also have Romeo and Juliet. Nathaniel and Elizabeth should not wind up together because of society, but they do. And they don't die at the end. We also have, of course, strong/smart female protagonists. Elizabeth is a lot smarter than other people around her give her credit for, probably because she grew up in a library, the center of, you know, knowledge, etc. Yeah, and the last one we have is Undiscovered Powers. It's also a spoiler, so I won't tell you who has undiscovered powers, but there is one person in the book who doesn't realize that they have powers, and then they do, and it's great. That actually also ties in with the Chosen One trope. It's the same person. And being the Chosen One is the reason they have the powers. It's great. Yeah, that's it for the tropes. Let me know what you all think. If you think I haven't covered a trope, or if you have a trope to suggest to me, please leave it in the comments below. Other than that, you know, if you think I'm wrong about a trope, I guess we can argue about it in the comments, but I'm not really a person to argue with because I kind of always end with, I mean, you could be right, I could be wrong, whatever, like, it won't affect me. But yeah, let me know what you think, and let's move on to what do I have to do next? The read-alikes. I'm on my game today. I'm panorama body right now. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the read-alikes. One day I will have a theme song about the read-alikes for this book, which is why I keep dancing it around. So for Sorcery of Thorns, this can be kind of hard because it does follow a lot of tropes of other books, but this is a very unique book in the way that it's told and the characters and the setting, etc. So I found this hard for my part of it. You'll see when we get to it, but for now let's talk about what Goodreads and Novelist gave us. So Goodreads recommended me Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. One day I will get her name right. And this book, I feel like, is constantly recommended to me whenever I talk about Margaret Rogerson's books. I have a feeling it's because of, like, the topics they write about. I think even with the other book by her, this was the recommended book from Goodreads. It's pretty interesting, I think. I have a feeling it's more about, like, the Fae, and that kind of stuff. I still don't know much about this book. One day I will read into it, I guess. But that's what we got from Goodreads. From novelist, we have Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. The only thing I know about this book is the main character, I think, is a weaver, and it's something magical with her weaving. I think she's like a chosen one figure in that book, and she kind of has to deal with like an ever-mounting threat to her country, world, something like that. I just know the cover's really pretty. I remember when we got it in at the library and I processed it and I went, ooh, this cover. This cover is so pretty. So you can enjoy it on the screen. I don't remember which side I put it on. Whatever side I put it on, you will enjoy it. And for the last one is the recommendation from me, and I want to recommend Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I read Howl's Moving Castle after watching the anime, and I think, so, quick sidebar, I think that's the only way I can consume media is if I watch the show or movie first and then read the book, because if I did it in the opposite way, I would be mad. So I know some people who hate the anime, the Ghibli movie, because they read the book first. Personally, I love the movie and the book as separate entities. I think that these two kind of go really well together. You have a woman who didn't really have anything to do with magic, but also has undiscovered powers within herself. She kind of becomes the chosen one a little bit. She has to help Howl, who is a sorcerer or a magic user, who has kind of like a dark past kind of thing going for him. So it does have a lot of things that line it up really nicely together. As a sidebar, you should just read Howl's Moving Castle anyway, because it's a classic. It's not that many pages. I own it as like a mass media book, so it's like this big. And it's really good. So that's it for my recommendations for my read-alikes. Let me know if you've read them. Let me know if you've read Spin the Dawn and if it is as gorgeous as the cover says it is. And if you have any book recs for me, leave them in the comments below. I'm always looking for some more stuff to add to my TBR list, even though it is miles and miles long. And you can also find my Goodreads in the description down below if you want to see what I'm reading right now. So. And the last thing we have to talk about is my review. So for this book, I gave it a 9 out of 10. Shocker. There were a couple of things that I was a little nitpicky about. I'm trying to be a little more nitpicky because I am realizing that the more books I give a 10 out of 10, the less I think my reviews matter. If that makes any sense. So I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. It was a little predictable towards the end, so that's my only complaint. But that coming from someone who reads too many books, it's really hard to surprise me at this point. I think I was surprised by one book in like the last year, and I've read 200 books in the last year. So it's not necessarily a failing of this book. It just lost a little bit of points in my opinion. And I do want to also say this one thing. I feel like I haven't said this at all in all the reviews, in the 65, I think, reviews that I've done, or 63, however many it is at this point. Just because I hate a book doesn't mean that you have to hate the book. If you love the book and I hate the book, that's totally fine. We have tastes for a reason. I love trash TV, like love trash TV. And sometimes I just hate a book. It happens. I do appreciate everyone who's commented on any of my videos, like who agrees with me on the book. I feel very validated when that happens. But if you hated this book, tell me, I guess. I'd love to know why. I have a coworker at one of my library jobs who like hates books all the time, and she and I get into like these amazing conversations about it. She's a little more nitpicky than I am, and that's fine. Like, I'm to each their own, you know, whatever. But I find it really fascinating to talk to people who like hate things. It opens my eyes to like this whole other world. So anyway, that's it for Sorcery of Thorns. Let me hold up this gorgeous book again. Ugh, Please go pick it up. It's really pretty. I think it was also on sale recently as an ebook. Definitely worth your time. Definitely worth the $3 for the ebook, or $18.99 I think I paid for this. $17.99 I paid for this. And yeah, that's it for this week. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. So peace out, YA nerds.